Shabbat Shalom. I'm Rabbi Robert Barr, and I'm pleased that you're joining me and one another for the streaming Shabbat service. This is an opportunity for us to pause, to catch our breath, to think about where we've been and where we're going. So put away the pencil and the paper, put away the notebook and the keys, set aside the shovel and hammer. Rest. For this interval, no buying, no selling, no working, no laboring, no straining, not living in the past, not planning for the future. This is a time for celebration, for joy, for mirth. We are here alive to rejoice in another Sabbath, another opportunity to be together, grateful for our family and our friends. With no distraction, we touch and are touched, the great gift of the Sabbath. Again, I'm Rabbi Robert Barr of Congregation Beth Adam. That's our bricks and mortar congregation here in Lebanon, Ohio. That's part of Greater Cincinnati and our Jewish community. That's our online initiative. We went online 14 years ago. We recognized as a community that the internet afforded us an opportunity to connect with people around the world. It allowed us to remain connected to members who moved to different cities or students who grew up here and went off to college. It allowed us to make new friends. During the pandemic, being online became even more important. With social distancing, we were able to remain connected, to remember that we were part of something larger than ourselves, a community. And even now, as we have begun to have activities back in our congregation, religious school and adult education, and some of our Shabbat services, we have hybrid services, being online remains an important aspect of what we do. But being online is a tool. It's technology. It's not the meat of who and what we are. What we are is a bold, dynamic congregation. For over 40 years, Congregation Beth Adam has been giving voice to a modern Judaism, a Judaism that reflects who we are as modern people. We don't need to repeat and mimic our ancestors. We need to create something new and vibrant that is reflective of who we are, the knowledge that we have, the insights that our ancestors didn't have. While we can appreciate what they created, we recognize that we don't need to be bound by it, that we have the right and the responsibility to continue to create, to invigorate Judaism and the Jewish experience with who we are and what we believe and what we value. And you're a part of that by being here this evening with me and with one another. Being online affords us opportunities, all kinds of opportunities. We can chat with one another. I know some of the folks on ourjewishcommunity.org, that's our website. They like watching the streaming service there. They can chat with one another. That's really great. Or you can be watching on one of our Facebook pages and you can leave messages. Let us know where you're participating from. It also means we can time shift. You don't have to watch the service when we stream it at 7 o'clock. You can watch it whenever it is convenient for you, as well as we can include things in the service from different places because technology allows us to cut and paste, if you splice in and edit new things. So that's what technology affords us. And I'm delighted you're here sharing this Shabbat with me and with one another. And we continue our service with the lighting of the Shabbat candles. On this Shabbat, we create our moment in time. We pause to reflect upon our yesterdays and tomorrows, to renew our ties with family and friends, to restore our energies, to refresh our spirits. As the sun descends and the shadows lengthen, the direction of the day gives way to the stillness of night. It's time now for us to see, not with our eyes, but with our hearts and minds. As the day gives way to evening, it's time for us to welcome the Shabbat. The candles stand before us, waiting to be lit. We recall our ancestors as we too seek to dispel the darkness and banish the cold, to bring glowing softness, warmth, and safety into our homes. May the dancing flames of these candles kindle warmth within our hearts, wisdom in our minds, passion in our hearts. Baruch ha'or ba'olam, blessed is the light within the world. Baruch Orba Adam. Blessed is the light within each person. Baruch Orba Shabbat. Blessed is the light of the Sabbath. Have a little problem there, lighting that candle. There we go. Got it lit. In time, disturbances will pass, difficulties will dissolve. In time, aggravations will be forgotten, obstacles will be overcome. In time, we will find solutions even to our most pressing concerns. Mountains move and even disappear. Clouds revealing an ever-present sun. In time, moments of desperation will give way to an inner calm, and through others, we will find comfort for our fears. In time, may we find ways to accept life's unending turbulence completely and move gently forward in time. So, Passover is rapidly coming up. And Congregation Beth Adam, on our website, if you go to bethadam.org and go to learning, you will see holiday resources. And if you scroll down, you will see Passover resources. We have a number of them. You can listen to some podcasts that I recorded about Passover. You can read a history about Passover. You can there's a workbook for children. You can find that, Passover Resource Guide. So activities that you can do with adults and kids together. And also there's this great video that I want to share with you this evening. It was created by Jay Gilbert, who is a member of Congregation. Jay was doing something called Uncle Jay Explains the News, where he did this on a regular basis, and he did a special edition just for us called Uncle Jay Explains Passover. I hope you enjoy.
Hey, boys and girls. It's time for Uncle Jay Explains the News. Now here's the guy who helps little minds understand big news stories, Uncle Jay.
Hi, boys and girls. Well, why is this Uncle Jay episode different from all other episodes? Well, in all other episodes, we look at the current news. Ugh. But in this episode, our word of the week is Passover. That's right, it's Passover season again. So, in the news, they usually show the same stuff. A family having a Seder, piece of matzah, and the movie starring this guy, the world's most famous Jew, who actually wasn't. Now, most people, Jewish or not, know the basics of the Passover story pretty well. Moses came to Pharaoh to free the Jewish slaves from Egypt, and Pharaoh said no, and suddenly a bunch of terrible things started to happen. The river turned to blood, and frogs fell from the sky, and the cable went out, and texting stopped working. It was horrible. When Pharaoh saw that God had decided to pass over the homes of the Jews without shutting off their Wi-Fi, he said, "Fine, you win, get out." The slaves left Egypt in such a hurry that they couldn't bake their bread the right way, and Jews have been paying the price for that ever since. Today, not all Jews celebrate Passover exactly the same way, although they each do it the right way, just ask them. Most Passovers, though, do have a lot in common. For instance, there's the Seder, the special ceremonial meal. And in keeping with Jewish tradition, everyone suffers by having to look at all the food without being able to eat it for a long time. First, a special book is read called the Haggadah. This tells the story pretty much all the way through. There's the plagues and the parting of the Red Sea, and God finally blessing the Jews with the land of Israel, the only place in the entire Middle East without any oil under it. Now, the Seder has a couple of things that are kind of cool because you get to do things that you usually get in trouble for. For instance, there's a place where you can stick your finger in your drink and let it drip on your plate. I am not making this up. The kids also get to ask the 4 questions, although in keeping with Jewish tradition, the adults have all the answers. You get to sing a song called Dayenu, which roughly means we're satisfied with what you did. It's about the only time you'll hear your parents say that. When the food finally does happen, some of it is pretty tasty. Some seders have gefilte fish, which is kind of like fish spam. Be careful. And to get back to the matzah, there is a way to make it taste a little better. If you put butter and salt on it, it tastes just like butter and salt. Well, there's a lot more about Passover, and some people think the stories are all true. Others see them as inspirational legends. But if you've learned enough here so that you just never ever have to watch this movie, I've done a mitzvah. You're welcome.
Well, I hope you enjoyed Jay's video. He did a great job. It's really a remarkable piece, very funny, very insightful. And as he said at the end, if you never have to watch the 10 Commandments again, he did a mitzvah, he did a good deed. Feel free to share that video with others. You can find it again on our website, bethadam.org, under our Passover resources. And now I want to read you a midrash, a Jewish legend. Now, to be clear, the stories in the Torah are legends. The Exodus from Egypt, that's a legend. That is a myth. There is no evidence that there was ever an escape from Egypt. Our ancestors created that particular tale. They created that particular legend. Now, midrash are legends on legends. Rabbis throughout history have been taking stories in the Bible and rewriting them, adding different curves and different ideas to the text that already exists. This legend that I'm about to read is a modern legend based upon the story of the Exodus found in the Bible. The first few days of freedom were great. The children of Israel could hardly stand it. Never before had they had so much fun. While they were slaves in Egypt, their days had been full of bitterness and hardship. But now their days were easy. All they had to do was wander in the wilderness and look for a new home. At the beginning, everyone pitched in. People took turns cooking, watching the children, tending to the animals. Those first few months were easy on Moses. All he had to do was plot the course the children of Israel were to follow. But as the months passed, some of the children of Israel became angry. They were mad at Moses because the journey was not easy. One night at dinner, someone rose and yelled at Moses, "What are you doing to us? Why is this taking so long? What are we going to do when our food runs out?" Then somebody else jumped up and said, "In Egypt, we might have been slaves, but at least there was water to drink and food to eat. We are never going to get to our new home." Then a group of individuals started chanting, "Let's go back to Egypt. Let's go back to Egypt. Let's go back to Egypt." Moses could not believe what he was hearing. He could not understand how people who had once been slaves and were now finally free were so willingly and easily willing to give up their freedom. In frustration, Moses rose and returned to his tent. He was terribly disappointed with those who wanted to return to slavery, and he was not sure what to do. Moses sat alone in his tent, and he hung his head in despair. He knew if any of the children of Israel returned to Egypt, that they would once again be slaves. They would never know freedom again. Moses had so hoped that everyone would learn to love freedom, even though at times it was hard. But he realized now that some had not. If Moses could not think of something quickly, many would return to Egypt. And that would be the end of the Jewish people. As he sat, Moses heard voices outside his tent. The voices grew louder. Outside, he found children standing in front of his tent. Moses walked up to them and asked, "What's wrong, my children?" And a young girl with sparkling eyes began to speak. "Some of the adults want to return to Egypt and others do not. All they do is argue about freedom. And we the children, we do not understand. Why are they arguing, Moses?" So Moses spoke. "Your question is not an easy one. In order to understand, we must first look back into our people's past." So Moses sat with the children, and he began to explain to them the past. He said, before our people came to Egypt, they were free. They did as they pleased. They raised their animals and they roamed the countryside. Their lives were not always easy, but they were in control of how they spent their days. Even after they came to Egypt, life wasn't bad because our ancestor Joseph helped save Egypt from starvation. So our people were treated well. We lived lives of freedom and we got along well with our neighbors. But in time, a new Pharaoh arose who did not know Joseph. And this king did not trust our people. When people do not trust one another, freedom is most threatened. The king took away all of our people's choices. He enslaved them. He told them that they were now slaves. They could no longer live the lives as they chose. They could only do what he told them to do. The people were no longer allowed to decide where to live. Pharaoh made them build little shacks and forced them to live in them. They could not decide what to eat. Pharaoh forced them to eat food that had spoiled. As slaves, our ancestors were not able to make decisions. They never could think about what tomorrow meant because Pharaoh made all the decisions. And when we left slavery, many of your parents weren't ready for freedom. It's not their fault. They were so used to being told what to do, they did not know how to make decisions for themselves. Being free is not easy. Freedom means thinking for oneself, making one's own decisions. Without practice, people forget how to do this. In time, there are those who are afraid, who will regain their confidence, and they will want to be free. You children, you are a new generation. You're children of freedom. You must remember how important freedom is for all people. Do not forget what that freedom means, not only that others respect us, but we also have to respect other people. It is only when we treat others with respect that freedom can flourish. Without freedom, people are like plants which have no light. They grow weak and have no desire to live. With freedom, freedom to choose and freedom to dream, people are strong and healthy and ready to face the challenge that life offers. Freedom may not always be easy, said Moses. There will always be those who will try to destroy it, those who do not trust and will try to make others slaves. But you must always remember the experience of your ancestors and never allow slavery to exist again. On that day when all people know freedom, Moses said, our world will be a joyous place. When Moses looked up, he saw the children's faces, and behind them, their parents, many of whom said that they were ready to return to Egypt. Moses could tell from the looks on their faces they would not return. For now they were ready to face freedom. He knew that they would never return to Egypt, that they would never become slaves to any person or idea. Moses knew that they would always make their own decisions and chart their own course. Moses said to them, together, all of us will find a new land to live in, a place where we will be free to make our own decisions and create our own lives. It will not be easy, but if we truly want it, we will not fail. After wandering in the desert for 40 years, they finally arrived at the land where they could live. But before they entered the new land, Moses spoke to the people one last time. I cannot go with you into the new land, he said, but you are ready to enter it. Always protect freedom, for without it, we will again become slaves. Always teach this to your children and their children and every generation of our people. We must always work for freedom, not only for our own people, but for all people. Passover is about freedom. While the story is a legend, the truth of the story, that nugget, is that freedom is essential. It's hard. It requires work. It can challenge us. It can ask us, but freedom is a precious gift that we should never sacrifice. I hope this Passover, as you read the Passover Haggadah, you think not only about that legend, but you think about the world in which we currently live. Think about people who are trapped. Think about how we can make our world a safer, healthier place where all people can live lives of their own determination. Passover needs to be more than just remembering or imagining this legend. It needs to be about urging us to take action to make the world that we live in today a better, safer, healthier place. I want to wish you a happy Passover. Now we're going to continue our service with the sharing of wine. We celebrate the fruit of the vine and the bounty of nature, so you lift the cup. For we're part of nature which gave us birth and continues to sustain us. Even as we depend upon nature, so do we influence its course. Through the search for understanding, we've gained the knowledge to shape our world. Guided by the best of human wisdom and the compassion of our spirit, we accept the responsibility which rests upon us. May the taste of the wine upon our lips stir within us a reverence for nature and a respect for human endeavor. Ruchim hachayim ba'olam, blessed is the life within the world. Ruchim hachayim ba'adam, blessed is the life within each person. We say, l'chaim, to life. And Passover's just around the corner. If you need some Passover resources, go to bethadam.org, and there you will find some. If you act quickly, we can probably get some Haggadahs to you. That's going to be a little bit tough at this point, depending on when you're going to have your Seder. For those of you who are part of our community and get our blast emails, you also know that we're going to do a Zoom Seder on Friday, the 7th at 6 o'clock. So that people will all be at their own homes, and we will read the Seder together across distance, but we'll be a community, because that's the power of technology. It allows us to know that we're part of ourselves. In fact, it's going to be the biggest Passover table most of us will ever be at. So I want to wish you a happy, healthy Passover, a Passover of freedom, a Passover that we learn and engage in an important conversation of what it means to live in a society where all people need and deserve to know freedom. And we end with the words we end with each week. May we know blessings those who are near. May we know blessings those who are far. May the Sabbath bring its goodness to everyone soon, wherever they are. May we know blessings through the day, and may we know blessings through the night. May health be for our children and for all people, and all things soon be right. May we know blessings that are comings, and may we know blessings when we depart. May we live each day with peace and wisdom in each heart. Ken Yehi, let it be. Shabbat Shalom.